The wingers for the All Blacks, Talia and Sevu Reece, were not good enough for me. I'd be putting Jordan back on the wing with Caleb Clark. That's the way forward for the All Blacks, and they need to stick to that selection in my opinion. Yes, I'm being pretty direct today because I've seen enough now against 2 games against South Africa, 2 losing games against South Africa, and these options that Razor put out haven't done the job for the All Blacks. G'day everyone, welcome to the Inside Rugby post-game show. I'm going to be talking about the South African Springboks versus the New Zealand All Blacks that was just played in Cape Town in South Africa in this video. So let's get right into it. G'day everyone, welcome back to the channel. Great to have you here. If you're watching my videos from all across the world, let me know where you're tuning in from today. I would love to find out. It's just finished and here's my post-game show. I'm going to talk about the game in detail, give you my views and opinions about what happened, and I ask you to throw your comments in there as well. One of the interesting statistics or facts before this game got underway today was every time the Barrett brothers have all started a game for the All Blacks, they've only won 2 out of 8. So is that a bad omen because they were starting the game again today? The South African front row, a total of 160 caps between them. Was that going to be a significant factor in this game? Well, we didn't have to wait long to find out. Now the game got underway and within 24 seconds we had our first mistake. It was from Grant Williams from South Africa. It took too long for Matthew Carley, the referee, to clear the ball, and he was penalised as such. Well, we didn't have to wait long for the All Blacks to make a mistake, and it was in the 2nd minute of the game. The ball came out in an attacking phase for the All Blacks down the left hand side. Mark Talia dropped the ball as he went into the tackle of Sia Kolisi, and that was a bit of a choke up from the All Blacks on that occasion. So we moved on to the 3rd minute of the game, and it was the first scrum, and it was dominated by South Africa. They pushed the All Blacks back. They looked very threatening, and that was a little bit of a concern because was this going to be something that would continue throughout the game? It was a good start by the South African forwards. They really put the push on, and it was Tyrell Lomax that looked like he was under a little bit of pressure on the All Blacks side of that scrum. It was really tense in these opening minutes, and one of the things that I think both sets of fans have been maybe ignoring a little bit, and because when I read a lot of the comments talks about, well, we made a lot of errors in Johannesburg and all the rest of it. Well, I think both teams are making errors because of the pressure and the intensity of the defences that are going on. I watched that game last weekend 3 times now, and every time I watch it I see more and more how the defensive pressure is putting the mistakes on the opposing team, and that's why we're seeing a lot of errors in these games between South Africa and New Zealand, and that's the way this game started off for me as well. So the pressure continued, and it looked like that both teams were doing a bit of an arm wrestle in the early minutes of the game, trying to get some dominancy. The game wasn't really flowing, it was going backwards and forwards just with that intense pressure, and it was already obvious early on that this was going to be a very tight game. Now cards and everything were going to be important, of course, and in the 6th minute we saw a high tackle from Damian McKenzie. He was lucky, I thought, to stay on the field with that one. The referee decided that he did pull out and there was mitigating circumstances, so he was lucky to stay on the field, Damian McKenzie. Then in the 7th minute we saw that man Damian McKenzie back in the play again. It was through Andre Pollard. He put up a high kick, and of course we knew that this was going to be one of the tests that South Africa would bring in this game of the All Blacks. Damian McKenzie was under the ball, but because there was 2 South Africans contesting, McKenzie wasn't able to regather the ball. So already early in the game, Andre Pollard's high balls were making an impact, and it was an opportunity for the ball to come back on the South African side. Unfortunately for them, there was a knock on and the play had stopped at that stage. And then in the 9th minute, another mistake from the New Zealanders under a high ball. Pollard put up another one. Mark Talia was underneath it, and unfortunately he touched the ball and it went out over the touchline. So turnover ball for the South Africans again, and a very good strategy by them, bringing Andre Pollard in to start this game, put the All Blacks under pressure. And then we got to the 10th minute, and it was really the first stage of the game where we saw some consistent attacking from one team. It happened to be the All Blacks on this occasion. They started putting multiple phases together and looked very good as they went deep into the South African 22. But there was a great breakdown steal by Jasper Wiese, and he stole the ball for the South Africans to be able to clear away from their danger zone. It was a good period of play from the All Blacks. It looked enterprising, but they weren't able to regather that ball, and Jasper Wiese, a very, very good steal. 13th minute of the game, the All Blacks got the ball in. We saw Will Jordan breaking down the touchline, and he nearly got away. He was just touched by Sia Khaleesi, who did a fantastic job in covering defence to get Will Jordan. If he'd got past, he put a little kick in, and if he got a little bit further down the field, he could have been away, but it was a great covering tackle. Then we got to the 14th minute mark, and something happened that we all didn't want to see in the game, and that was our first yellow card. And I say first because we're going to talk about a few of those in this game. And this time it was that man Jasper Wiese, who'd just done a great piece of work in defence. This time he did a really stupid thing. He took out Cortez Ratama, tackled him without the ball. There was no doubt about it, and he was off to the sin bin. So South Africa were down to 14 men. New Zealand deep onto attack and having several phases of play. They decided on this occasion to take the kick for goal. Damian McKenzie was successful. So after 15 minutes of the first half, New Zealand went ahead in this game by 3 points to 0. It certainly wasn't the opening to the game that I had expected. I thought the New Zealanders were going to be able to put on more pressure early on in the opening minutes and perhaps get a try or two. But South Africa were really on it from a defensive point of view, and they were working the defensive line very, very well. The New Zealanders were using their inside forwards to try and keep it close to the channels, and then moving the ball out wide, and every time they did, the South African backline was in the right position to close them down. So in the 16th minute, New Zealand decided to say to South Africa, whatever you can do, we can do the same, and that was regards to yellow cards. And we saw Sevu Reece being sent off with a yellow card after a contestable kick went up. Willie LaRue went to get the ball, and Sevu Reece, no doubt about it, deliberately went into him. He should have pulled away from it. He did it too late, and of course the rule states that if you touch the player when he's in the air, you're off the field, young man, and off the field he went. So both teams, after 16 minutes of the game, down to 14 men, and here's us all talking about not wanting to see yellow cards in the game, and within the first 20 minutes of the game we'd seen 2 yellow cards. So was that setting the precedent? Well, we had to wait and see. 17th minute of the game, and the first injury element for the All Blacks, and it was Cody Taylor that had to go off for an HIA. Up until that stage, I thought he'd played really, really well, Cody Taylor. He was doing some great things in general play. He was making a nuisance of himself. He'd made a couple of breaks. He was doing good in the scrums and in the lineouts, and having one of his better games for the All Blacks, I must say. But unfortunately, he got a bit of a knock, and he had to go off to check it out. And then in the 18th minute, we saw Cheslin Colby do what Cheslin Colby does, and he nearly ran through the entire All Black team to score a try. Once again, it was a ball that was a uncontestable kick from the All Blacks, gave the ball away to South Africa, and it was Colby that took off and danced his way through the All Black defensive line, if I can call it that, on that occasion. And it was very lucky that Sam Cane just touched Colby at the end, otherwise Colby would have gone under the post and scored a try. And this is what I talk about when I talk about Cheslin Colby's brilliant game management of the situation. He looked at what was in front of him, he decided to give it a go, and it nearly paid off for South Africa on that occasion. The All Blacks defence was lacking in a lot of areas. For him to beat so many players as he ran through the whole team, I'm sure that would have sent shockwaves through Razor Robertson's body sitting up in the stand. What we started to see unfold in this first half was we saw the All Blacks scrum starting to get a little bit better, but New Zealand were winning the breakdowns, and this was really impressive, and they were winning some penalties from the breakdowns. South Africa weren't releasing quickly enough, and they weren't clearing out, and the All Blacks were taking advantage of this. They were getting a man over the board. We saw a couple of good instances, one from Sam Cane in particular, that earned the All Blacks a penalty while South Africa were on attack. So we talked about it in the pre-game video, how important it was going to be for the breakdowns. I thought New Zealand were getting the better choices and decisions early on in the game. That was resulting in a few penalty opportunities, and particularly when South Africa was on attack, that was an opportunity for the All Blacks to be able to clear their line. So in the 25th minute, Jasper Wiese came back on for South Africa, so they had about a 90-second advantage with 15 men later before Sevu Reece came on. It didn't make any impact on the game. There was no points scored in that particular period of the game. And the good news for the All Blacks was that Cody Taylor came back on the field after passing his HIA test during that time where Sevu Reece was off the field with the yellow card. 27th minute of the game, and by this time of the game I thought that Cortez Ratama was doing pretty well. He'd got caught a couple of times, but for the most part he was distributing the ball well. What was not making sense for me was the way the All Blacks were playing again out in 12 and 13. And Jordie Barrett and Rieko Ioane, for me, it's just not working, and it was showing early on in this game again. I don't know why we're persisting with Rieko Ioane at 13. It's just not giving the All Blacks the opportunity to be creative out wide. Whenever we did get the ball, Mackenzie was under a little bit of pressure. He was trying to step his man, but the South African defence was huge and getting up in his face. And then when the ball went out wide, it seemed as though the All Blacks were going more lateral than they were making headway. And this is where it's starting to fall over for me. But one of the things the All Blacks were doing well was they were trying to play a lot of the game in the middle of the field. This was giving them options both sides. But the Springboks defence were onto it, and they were playing much better than they did last week early in this game. They were stopping the All Blacks from having those opportunist tries and turnovers, which led to going heavy into defence. And their defensive work was really, really good. So at the 27th minute mark, we saw another indiscretion from South Africa at a breakdown. It gave the All Blacks an opportunity to kick for goal. Damian Mackenzie took it from 45 metres out, and he nailed this one. So the All Blacks went out to 6 points to 0, and we're almost already at 30 minutes in the game. And then in the next couple of minutes, it was all South Africa. They started really putting the pressure on. We saw some good work again from Siya Kolisi, and he was having a really, really good game, I thought, as was Eben Etzebeth. He'd made a couple of really good breaks, putting a lot of pressure on. The South African lineouts wasn't too good in the beginning of this game, but they started to get their act together through Ruan Norkia, who I thought started to develop as the game went on. And I thought Rassie would have been a little bit worried with the lineout exchanges early on in this game. But as I said, it started to come right slowly for the South Africans as the first half continued. We got to the 31st minute of the game, and Ardie Savea had an indiscretion at the breakdown, which by looking at him, he's been doing quite often lately. We saw it in Johannesburg, and we started to see it in this game. Matthew Carley penalised Savea a couple of times with his timing at the breakdown. So this gave Andre Pollard his first chance at a kick for goal in this game for South Africa. He was successful, of course, and South Africa got the scoreboard back to 6 points to 3 after 32 minutes of the first half. 33rd minute of the first half, and we saw a great break from Jasper Wiese for South Africa. Got out of a breakdown and took the ball downfield. He was missed initially by Wallace Satiti, but Cortez Ratama was back there doing some great defensive tackling, and he got Jasper Wiese under control, and the All Blacks were able to stop that attacking opportunity from the Springboks. As the first half went on, one of the things that I was witnessing from the All Blacks was their poor execution when it came to their short passing. We were seeing people out of possession. It happened again between Jordie Barrett and Rieko Ioane. Ioane was standing in the middle of nowhere waiting for a short pass from Barrett, but the ball went behind him, so it broke down another opportunity from the All Black backline. We saw this on a number of occasions. Now there's two things in my mind that are causing this for the All Blacks. The first one is the pressure coming from the South African defence, but a world-class team needs to be able to handle this, and they need to be able to deal with that pressure and still be able to execute their passes. And for me, this is one of the areas where the All Blacks are really lacking at the moment. They're not able to execute their short passes when they're under pressure from an opposing defence. We saw it against England, and now we've seen it against South Africa in 2 games. So that was a pivotal moment for me. The All Blacks weren't able to keep those short passes together and make something of an attacking opportunity. We just had a few minutes left in the first half. Who was going to go to the halftime break in the lead of this game? We saw Cody Taylor in the 38th minute doing some great work again in the breakdown, and for me he was the standout All Black in the first half, along with Wallace Satiti. But we had more points to come before halftime, and it was another opportunity for the All Blacks on the back of Ruan Norkia gave away a penalty for not releasing the ball. It was in kicking range, I should say, for Damian Mackenzie, and he made no mistake of that one. So at half time, the All Blacks went to the lead by 9 points to 3. Look, summarising the first half for me, South Africa had some really good players. I thought Pollard was doing really good things. He was managing the game very cleverly. Siya Kolisi had a really big first half. Peter Steph du Toit was good as well. Jasper Wiese up and down. He was off the field for 10 minutes, but while he was on, he did some really good things for South Africa. Look, it was a really tense first half of rugby. There was a lot of errors on both sides, but again, I stress these errors are coming from pressure. These are the two top teams in world rugby, and of course they're going to put pressure on each other, and not all these passes are going to go to hand. But what was lacking for me in New Zealand was their structure, their organisation. When the pressure came on from South Africa, they looked a little bit clueless, and if it wasn't for the likes of Cody Taylor and Wallace Satiti taking the ball up, Savia did some good runs as well in that first half, New Zealand would have been on the back foot a lot more than what South Africa was. When South Africa got the ball, they looked dangerous. Cheslin Colby was coming in and making himself look very, very dangerous on different occasions during that first half. Damian Deolandi was having a big game for South Africa and made some really good busts, but he also was able to turn that ball back and get second and third phase ball for South Africa. On their side, again, it was just a couple of errors that were stopping South Africa from making that ultimate pass that could have led to more points for them. So it was very close at half time. Even though the All Blacks were in the lead by 6 points, it wasn't any lead at all that you would feel comfortable with. And of course, we were all expecting South Africa to come back in the second half. I thought Damian McKenzie had a mixed first half. There were some good things, but too many bad things are happening there around his game management for me. I've talked about it in all my videos. It's not hatred, I'm just looking at him from a rugby point of view. And Will Jordan at fullback wasn't doing it for me either. I would have liked to seen him out on the wing because we looked very weak with Sevu Reece, and Mark Talia looked vulnerable under the high ball from South Africa, and also their handling on different occasions let us down. Poor game management from Sevu Reece in that first half meant he spent 10 minutes of it on the bench, and we can't afford to do that. We're having yellow cards in every game now for the All Blacks, and it's putting the rest of the players under too much pressure. And against a team like South Africa, you're on a hiding to nothing if you're going to have men going off on the bench. So overall, even though the All Blacks led at half-time, I was very cautious about what was going to happen in the South African team in the second half. We knew what they had on the bench, but we also knew if they cut out some of these errors, they were going to be able to put a lot more pressure on the All Blacks. So the second half got underway, and it was that man Wallace Satiti who took off for a great run in the early seconds of the second half. And I thought for a young 21-year-old, or 22 today I think he is, he had a magnificent game and start to the game. He did a couple of things early on that were a little bit dubious, but he really came back into the game, and I think as he became more comfortable at the speed of the game and the players he was up against, he really showed his talent, and I was very impressed, particularly after that run just after half time. Wallace Satiti was on fire. So what I was really interested in this game was to watch the pivotal moments in the second half where New Zealand either took their opportunities or missed them. The first one came in the 42nd minute, so just after half time. The New Zealanders had a penalty. It was 56 metres out from the South African line, and on this occasion they decided to take a kick for goal to try and get more points. Was the decision right? In my mind, yes it was. Was the right person kicking the ball? No. 56 metres out. It's too far for Damian McKenzie in my book. It should have been Geordie Barrett giving that a go if the All Blacks decided to kick for goal, which they did do. McKenzie came up very short, missed it to the right, and the Springboks were able to clear the ball easily. So for me, that was the first missed opportunity in the second half for the All Blacks. One of the interesting aspects of the game was going to be how long would Rassie wait before he started making changes, and we didn't have to wait too long into the second half. In fact, it was the 44th minute of the game where we saw Malcolm Marx come on, and we also saw Kanan Moody go off and Lacano Arm come on. So Rassie had decided to bring these changes on for the South African team to keep that momentum going and to see whether they could get themselves back into this game. Well, it had an immediate impact, and we saw South Africa getting more ball and more opportunity to get close down to the All Blacks line. They had multiple phases of play that took them deep into the All Black 22, and we saw Eben Etzebeth go very close to scoring a try. We had to have a TMO review to find out whether the ball had touched the line. The decision was that it was inconclusive. There was no try awarded by Matthew Carley, but South Africa had got very close to scoring a try, and they were sending out a warning to the All Blacks that they were coming after them in the second half. Now, what was interesting around this period as we headed towards the end of the 40-odd minutes and head towards the 50 minutes of this game was that South Africa was giving a couple of opportunities for penalties. They decided to kick for touch and keep the pressure on the All Blacks. I thought this was very strong decision from the Springboks, giving away an opportunity to score a couple of penalty goals. and going to keep the pressure on through the line out. In the 49th minute of the game, it paid off because the continued pressure from South Africa was too much for the All Blacks. The ball came out to the right hand side to Sia Kolisi, who was close to the post. He beat over Rieko Ioane, who missed the tackle on him, and Kolisi went over for a great try to South Africa. Andre Pollard was not going to miss the conversion from there, so South Africa hit the lead after 50 minutes of the game, and they went ahead by 1 point, 10 points to 9 in their favour. So that try just made the decision for Razor Robertson to start making the changes for the All Blacks. We saw Anton Leonard-Brown come on, Mark Talia went off, and Rieko Ioane was moved out to the wing. And we also saw Cortez Ratama go off and TJ Perenara come on. I thought Ratama played pretty good in this game, and for the fact that he was starting against the Springboks for the first time in his playing career, he did enough for me in that period of play to suggest that he's the right man. He's only going to build in confidence from here. Perenara came on, so of course I had my eyes looking on him because I wanted to see how he would go and what impact he was going to be able to make. All Blacks on attack again towards halfway, heading into the South African half, and unfortunately Ioane went down into the tackle with the ball but gave the penalty away to South Africa, not releasing. So again, Rieko Ioane costing All Blacks not only possession but also good territory in that particular occasion. Rassie had seen enough from Andre Pollard in his 75th test for the Springboks, and it was time to bring on the little magician Sasha Feinberg Ngoma Zulu. I shouldn't call him little because he's a bit of a beast of a guy, but he came on, so it was going to be interesting to see how that change worked out for South Africa at number 10. Well, 53rd minute of the game, Sevu Reece cost the All Blacks another penalty, and this time Sasha came up and got the kick for goal, no problem at all. So South Africa went out to 13 points to 9. Reece was not having a good game in my opinion for the All Blacks. He cost us a yellow card and he cost us a couple of penalties as well. And the scoreboard was ticking away now inside the favour of the Springboks. We still had 20 odd minutes to go in this game, so there was an opportunity of course for the All Blacks to come back, but the momentum was starting to shift and you could see the belief in the South Africans starting to grow. And then in the next minute, 54th minute of the game, we saw something that I'd been talking about a lot. Damian McKenzie threw a suicide pass to Geordie Barrett because McKenzie was under pressure from the South African defence. They were crawling all over top of him. He just threw it nowhere to Geordie Barrett, and Geordie Barrett got absolutely pummeled by the South African defence who were up on him. This is the element of the game that I've been talking about with Damian McKenzie. He should have read that situation better. He should have perhaps put a kick in to the field or passed the ball to somebody else who was in a better position than what Geordie Barrett was. And because he was under that pressure, the decision making went away, and it got Geordie Barrett and New Zealand into a lot of trouble. 56th minute of the game, and Rassie decided to pull off Sia Kolisi, and what a fantastic game he had. He made a lot of tackles, he was great in general play, he scored that try for South Africa, and the guy's got a broken cheek or whatever. Absolutely amazing performance from Kolisi. He really is a general leader and somebody that obviously all the South African players get behind, and I thought he had an outstanding game today. The All Blacks showed some enterprise though in the 57th minute, and when they did start attacking they put on multiple phases. Sooner or later South Africa were going to give up a penalty under the pressure and the breakdown. They did that, and the New Zealanders banked another 3 points thanks to Damian McKenzie. So that brought the scores back to 13 points to 12 after 58 minutes. Now we were running towards the last 20 minutes of the game, and it was going to be really interesting to see, were the All Blacks going to be able to come from behind in this game and put pressure on South Africa, or were South Africa going to be able to stretch their legs and put some more points on the board? This is what I was really interested to see in the last 20 minutes. So straight from the restart after that penalty, we saw a New Zealand mistake again. Anton Leonard-Brown was there, didn't catch the ball. The ball went to Damian McKenzie on the bounce, and New Zealand were lucky again to be able to exit. We've seen this a couple of times now. The All Blacks last week in Johannesburg, their exiting from their own 22 from kickoffs was poor, and they brought that form with them again into this game. Up to the 60th minute mark, and Razor Robertson had decided that it was time to pull the ripcord, and he was going to take off Will Jordan at fullback. I don't think that experiment went very well at all in my opinion, and he brought on Beauden Barrett for his 1,628,000 cap for the All Blacks, and we also saw Luke Jacobson come on as well. An interesting selection for me, Jacobson. Was he going to be able to have a big impact on the bench, from the bench I should say? we would have to wait and see. 2 minutes later, in the 62nd minute of the game, we saw the All Blacks do a very enterprising backline move to the right-hand side of the field. The ball came out to Beauden Barrett. He made a pass towards Sevu Reece, and Willie le Roux stuck his arm out as though he was going to try and do an intercept. He was too far away from the ball, and as the rule states, if you stick your arm out and collect the ball or not, then it's going to be a yellow card. So Willie le Roux was going to find himself sitting on the bench for 10 minutes as a result of that action. So here we go, another pivotal moment in the game, the 63rd minute, the penalty kick opportunity from that indiscretion for the All Blacks, and it was Damien McKenzie who decided to take the shot at goal. Unfortunately, he missed the kick, but it did hit the post, and it came back, and Jordie Barrett was doing a sensational follow-up from the All Blacks. He was able to regather the ball, and New Zealand put the pressure on as though they were getting close to the South African lines to score a try. The ball was regurgitated a couple of times on the All Black side. It came out to Scott Barrett in a very good attacking position, but what does Scott do? He popped the ball up and gave it away to South Africa. So again, the poor handling from the All Blacks, letting them down when they were on attack and had a good opportunity to take points. So first of all, Damien McKenzie missed the penalty kick at goal. Secondly, the All Blacks weren't able to capitalise on a great opportunity created by Jordie Barrett, and South Africa came away and cleared their line. 66th minute of the game, and it became a bit of a penalty kicking feast at this stage. Sasha Feinberg got an opportunity 52 metres out. Unfortunately, he got a little bit under the pressure as well, and he pushed the ball to the left-hand side of the post, so the South Africans weren't able to capitalise on that opportunity. So then a minute later, we saw another opportunity for the All Blacks. They got a penalty within kicking distance. I thought, let's face it, Damien McKenzie had taken a shot from 58 metres or so before. He'd missed it, but we've got Jordie Barrett that can do these long penalty kicks. But instead of the All Blacks going for goal and having to try to get themselves in the lead with a penalty kick at this stage, they decided to kick for touch. So Jordie Barrett took the kick for touch, and it wasn't very good. He only got 25 metres further up the field. So New Zealand's kicking execution and also game management was really letting them down in this game. They weren't thinking through the options that they had available to them. They made pretty quick decisions on the field, and on this occasion again I felt as though it really cost them. And then we saw some more handling errors from the All Blacks, a couple of knock-ons, one in the line-out in particular that cost them when they were trying to get some momentum, and another one when they had a backline move. So again, the poor execution of passing in this game is something that Razor's going to sit down and probably blast a number of players about. So 10 minutes left in the game. The All Blacks did a very good attacking opportunity. They put themselves in the middle of the field. Steenkamp got penalised for the Springboks, so 35 metres out. Damien McKenzie had a chance to do a penalty kick that would put the All Blacks in the lead of this game with just 9 minutes left, but McKenzie missed the kick at goal. So a real big swing in the game where McKenzie wasn't able to get the All Blacks back in the lead. It gave South Africa the ball again. We had 9 minutes left in the game. And then in the 73rd minute, the determining factor of the game, and it was another yellow card from the All Blacks. This time Tyrell Lomax took out Cheslin Colby as he was chasing through on a ball, and Lomax changed his direction, got in the way of Cheslin Colby, and quite rightly so, found himself sitting on the bench next to Justin Marshall, who was working for Supersport this weekend. So a disaster for the All Blacks with just 6 minutes to go in the game. It gave South Africa a fantastic opportunity close to the line, but what happened next just had me shaking my head in disbelief. And what happened next was a fantastic move by the Springboks. They came out to the left-hand side, and it was Malcolm Marx that went over to score a fantastic try for the Springboks. I think one of you in the comments made a comment before this game that you thought Malcolm Marx was going to win the game for South Africa this week. Well, you, my friend, were 100% correct. He did win the game. But what got me was, if you look at the replay of that try from Malcolm Marx, two things. First of all, it was Malcolm Marx against who? Sevu Reece. So one-on-one, and there's no way in this world that Sevu Reece from 4 metres out is going to stop Malcolm Marx. The other thing in that replay was TJ Perenara went into the maul and became a fixed member of the maul instead of being in the defensive line, helping Sevu Reece out on the blind side to stop the South African threat. He didn't do that. TJ Perenara cost us that try as much as anybody else did. and Malcolm Marx deservedly went in for a great try to the Springboks. Another nervous one for Sasha Feinberg and Ngomazulu, and unfortunately didn't put South Africa far enough out into the lead. So we still had 5 minutes of very intense rugby to go, and this one was going to go down to the wire. But I tell you what, I had no confidence that the All Blacks were going to pull this one out of the bag. This is not the All Blacks team that we've seen from years ago, who were able to score tries almost at will in the last minute of the game to win in the dying seconds. This is a team that appears and seem to be under pressure in the last minutes of the game. They don't seem to be having the combinations right, and they don't seem to be able to threaten the opposition line in the closing minutes of a game. That might seem harsh to a lot of you, but this is the reality that we're living with in this All Black era of rugby, and Razor's got to really do something about it, and it comes down to the selections, in my opinion. So then in the last 5 minutes of the game, we saw South Africa putting more pressure on the All Blacks, and there's been a few of you in the comments that have talked about my opinions around TJ Perenara. So I want to make sure you stand up and have a look at this game closely today, because it was the next move in this game around the 76th minute when Sasha Feinberg and Ngomazulu took off down the right hand side of the field and made a great 30-metre bust for the Springboks, and it was that man TJ Perenara that missed the tackle on Sasha Feinberg. No excuse for Perenara, he hadn't been on the ground for the whole 70 odd minutes of this game. He came on as a replacement, so should have been fresher than some of those players around him. Sasha Feinberg and Ngomazulu made a kick from that run, unfortunately went out for the Springboks, but it gave the Springboks the opportunity to wind the clock down a little bit more. Springboks closed out this game really well. They got close to the All Blacks line again, and we saw Cheslin Colby doing a drop goal attempt, which was really interesting. He wasn't able to nail this one, and after Colby had fed the line out during this game, what else could this man do? He's an absolute masterclass, that's for sure. In the last minute of the game, the All Blacks got a penalty opportunity, and they decided to wind the clock down by Barrett taking a kick for touch and seeing whether they could run the ball. But once again, this All Black team is incomprehensible when it comes to making mistakes, and that's what we saw in the last few minutes. The ball was turned over by South Africa, and Ruan Norkia was the man that ended the game by putting the ball into touch. The crowd at Cape Town went wild. The Springboks had beaten the All Blacks 2-0. They'd won the Freedom Cup from the All Blacks, and everybody in South Africa and all the South African fans around the world were absolutely joyed with this win from South Africa, as you should be. It was a deserved win, and the All Blacks made too many mistakes, and I think this is the big thing that we're seeing from this All Black team at the moment. Okay, so let's summarise the game. First of all, South Africa, there were some really good players. I thought Colby had an outstanding game. Andre Pollard and Sasha Feinberg and Ngomazulu, that switch that Rassie made there, the way that it worked out on the game, it was brilliant for South Africa. It worked. Thought Damien Diolandi had a really good game. Peter Steph du Toit was huge again. He gave a lot of a hard time to the All Blacks inside channels and was causing Damian McKenzie some problems. I thought Jasper Wiese did some good stuff while he was on the field. It was a bit of a stupid thing to do to get Ratama over. Willie LaRue was up and down at fullback. I thought he had a yellow card. I think we missed Fassi today in terms of his counter-attacking ability. And I didn't think Keenan Moody had a special game today. And of course, I think we're going to see Kurt Lee Arendse back in that position again once he's fit and ready to go. So overall, it was a really good South African performance. Damien Diolandi really stepped up today. He had a better game than Jesse Creel, I thought, and was really good on defence. But he also made some good busts today that we haven't seen in previous games. I thought Lacano Arm's defensive work was not very good. He was on the inside channels. We saw the All Blacks trying to go around him on a couple of occasions, but he didn't really get any too many good opportunities in the game to show his attacking skills in this particular instant. Three standout forwards for me today for the Springboks: Peter Steph du Toit, Sia Kolisi and Oxenchair, I thought had a fantastic game as well. And of course Malcolm Marx when he came on and scored that try. So it was a very good performance by South Africa. They took their opportunities, and I think that's where the difference is with these teams at the moment. The All Blacks are not taking their opportunities, whether it be penalty kicks at goal or whether it be getting their positional changes to the chance where they've got a chance to do some attacking. I didn't like the way Will Jordan worked at fullback today. It wasn't impactful for me. Didn't make any big difference to the All Black team, and I thought he was under pressure on a couple of different occasions. I think Damian McKenzie had a poor game from a different point of view. His kicking was poor at goal. and he also gave away a couple of passes when he was under extraordinary pressure that didn't do the All Blacks any favours at all. What this game told me for the All Blacks was we need to see Wallace Satiti again. He was good enough to deserve another go against Australia. I think he can be a force to be reckoned with. He just needs to be given more opportunities, and I'd like to see him at number 8 because I think Ardie in the last couple of games hasn't played his best rugby there, and I'd like to see Ardie go into the flanking role where I think he will be more effective. So those are some of the changes I'd make. Tupu Vae made a very good game again today. I thought he was good. Scott Barrett coughed up the ball a couple of times, and I tell you what, I've got some question marks over his leadership. I don't know if he's the right captain for the All Blacks. Let me know in the comments what everybody else thinks of that one. Cody Taylor had a brilliant game, I thought, for the All Blacks. Asafa Amur, when he came on, was not very good. There was a line-out throw when he first came on the field that didn't go to hand, and it cost the All Blacks some possession on that particular occasion. And we saw the impact again when Cody Taylor came on back on the field after his HIA test. So there's an issue there for the All Blacks off the bench. And unfortunately for Fletcher Newell, because of the yellow card situation, he didn't get a fair chance either in getting a lot of game time for the All Blacks. The wingers for the All Blacks, Talia and Sevu Reece, were not good enough for me. I'd be putting Jordan back on the wing with Caleb Clark. That's the way forward for the All Blacks, and they need to stick to that selection in my opinion. Yes, I'm being pretty direct today because I've seen enough now against 2 games against South Africa, 2 losing games against South Africa, and these options that Razor put out haven't done the job for the All Blacks. Ratama, I thought, did enough to be given another chance to start, particularly against Australia. I think he'll be better for this game. And TJ Perenara again for me. I'd probably even leave him out of the team against Australia. I'd put Noah Hotham in there because Perenara, talking back to the referee again today, getting warned that he would be sent off, was a disgrace. He shouldn't be doing that in a game. He's got that much experience. And even Justin Marshall was embarrassed to talk about it from the sidelines at DHL Stadium. So there we go. There's my pretty heated and emotional post-game review today, folks. I've had enough of talking lightly about this All Black team. Now it's time to see some action. Razor needs to step up, and he needs to take some of these guys out of the team that are not performing. And I'm starting with Rieko Ioane. That has to be the first one to go. So let's see what happens now as we head into the series against Australia. And of course, South Africa will go on as winners now to Argentina and take on Argentina. It's just about time for that game to start, so I better get off and check it out. But listen, I want to know from you now what you thought of this game. Of course, all the Springboks fans across the world are going to be happy. One thing I'll remind you when you're putting all down your big comments about how great the South African team is, yes, they are very good, but we're seeing a different All Black team here. We're not seeing a very good All Black team at this moment. They're at a different stage of their evolution to what the Springboks team is. We've got a new coaching crew, we've got a new philosophy coming in, and we've also got some selection challenges. South Africa is building off a very good base. They've got a coach that's been in there for a long time with a very clear philosophy, and they're doing things very, very well. So it was a good win for South Africa. Congratulations on the Freedom Cup win as well. We mustn't forget about that. And I'm looking forward to seeing what happens now when South Africa goes to Argentina. Of course, Rassie's going to ring the changes again. That's one thing that's going to be absolutely certain. Once again, before I go today, I'm a retired bloke in Cancun, Mexico, who's making these videos because I love the game of rugby and want to play a small role in helping the game grow across the world. So if you can do one of these 5 things that I've put on the screen now to help me out with my evolution with this channel, I would be really, really grateful to every single one of you. So thank you for supporting my channel. I'm going to be back again really soon with some more content around this game, as well as looking at the Australian-Argentina game that's happening this afternoon as well. So make sure you stick around with me here on Inside Rugby with Mark, because there's plenty more content to come. Once I've calmed down a little bit, I'll make some more videos about this game and some of the issues going on with the All Blacks and some of the things that I recognised throughout this game with South Africa.